Hey, we had a great weekend of racing this weekend, particularly on the streets of Long Beach. So, hey, we actually had an IndyCar race to talk about it. Let's talk about it. We also have an IMSA race, which I'll talk about a little bit in this video as well. Of course, Long Beach is a weekend. It isn't just one race. Be sure while you're on this video to leave a like on it and subscribe if you haven't before. This is a great hub for all of motorsports. And leave your thoughts about Long Beach down in the comment section below, whether that's IMSA, IndyCar, or Fox Sports. And I've got to talk about Fox Sports because I actually need to heap a little bit of praise on them. Yes, there has been constructive criticism of Fox and what they've been doing or maybe haven't been doing on this channel. But I think we also have to acknowledge when they are making the changes and making improvements in the way that we want to see. And I think that one of my big criticisms over the last two weekends for IndyCar, and now in the third, they've kind of improved it, not totally, but there's been an improvement, is that the direction, especially during qualifying, has, I think, taken a step up. Particularly now we're beginning to see more focus on the cars that are on hot laps. A lot of times it felt like we were missing the drivers who were crossing the line, getting the checkered flag on hot laps, and it was kind of killing some of the drama. That has improved. What has also improved have been the graphics. Now, we're not there yet. We're starting to see some gaps, which drivers are on hot laps, which drivers are kind of falling off or going slower than they have in the past. But I still really, really am pushing that I would like to see sector times, just like Formula One. Just rip it off. Purple sector means you're fastest overall. Green means you're faster than you used to be, and orange means that you are slower than your best lap. I think it's really easy, really obvious, and obviously the translation to people who maybe are coming over from Formula One makes a lot of sense, and it adds to the drama of qualifying, and it might even help your director a little bit to be able to go, okay, this guy's on a purple lap. I need to see where he is on the racetrack and find him and show him to the TV audience. But I think, speaking of showing to the TV audience, I'm just going to show this off. I don't even know, because I was obviously, if you were tuned in live with me yesterday when I was watching the race here on the David Land channel, live and free, something we usually do for the DL 500 Club members, you guys know how excited I was when I saw this. And if you don't know why, is that I made a suggestion. I'm not saying that I'm the reason that they did this change, but I made a suggestion, and I have been making the suggestion for a very long time, whether it's ABC, NBC, Fox, that you need to show the cars, because especially in this modern era of racing, the liveries change. Even if the cast of characters doesn't, you might not know what your favorite driver's livery is. Or if you're a new fan, it can be very confusing at times. It's not like Formula One. Well, now Formula One's changing the liveries all the time too, but we'll talk about that later. The Indianapolis or IndyCar racing, you need to know what the cars look like so you can connect to the drivers. Fox Sports stood on business and understood value. They put the cars on the starting lineup. I mean, that's flawless. I don't even know. Maybe you could add like, the driver's saying where he's from, so I guess you don't need to have a country flag. You could have like speed or gap to the other cars, but I mean, outside of that, flawless. I mean, that's exactly what I want to see on a starting grid. And the fact that the drivers are introducing themselves, showing a little bit of personality, you get to see the cars. Now, that being said, some of the cars, some of the 3D models weren't right, which, that's something that needs to just be cleaned up. Just make sure you have the right livery for the right driver, because it kind of defeats the purpose if you show the wrong livery with the right driver. But on a whole, I'm extremely, extremely, extremely pleased with this. This is more important than you realize, Fox. You've started a trend, hopefully. Better starting grids, baby. That's what I'm looking for. Enough with the Fox glazing. Let's talk about IMSA. Robert Wickens, amazing story. You guys are well aware of it. I got to interview Rob at Petit Le Mans last year. He stated his goal is to eventually be able to compete in the Indianapolis 500. And now he can do that with the new Bosch braking system that was developed with Robert over the past 365 days. It's a system that's much smaller and can fit in pretty much any race car you want. And this weekend at Long Beach, it was Robert Wickens' first return to a top-level racing series with the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. He co-drove the DXDT, say that 3 times fast, Corvette GTD paired with Turbo Tommy Milner. Unfortunately, they ran strong throughout practice and qualifying and the race, but they finished a lap behind the GTD field because they had to make an unscheduled pit stop, which put them back. But it was a strong debut nonetheless for Robert Wickens in his return to the top level of racing. We're looking forward to seeing what else Rob has in store. He continues to be an extremely inspirational driver in racing. And of course, Robert Wickens' story doesn't just end at the IMSA weekend. He's, of course, a very integral part of the Andretti Global team. And, of course, that story continues on later on in the weekend. Wanted to give a huge shout-out to Penske Porsche, in particular, their number 7 Porsche 963, which extended their win streak in Long Beach to 3 races in a row. They did what Alex Palou could not. Spoiler alert. Penske Porsche, number 7, drivers Nick Tandy and Felipe Nasr win their 3rd race in a row at Long Beach. I mean, it was hard to believe, and this level of dominance in an era of BOP is pretty hard to believe, but they've managed to do it. And you may be asking, what about Lawrence Vanthor, who won the Rolex 24 and the Sebring 12 hours in the number 7 Penske Porsche? But of course, in a sprint race, 100 minutes, you don't need 3 drivers. Well, Lawrence Vanthor still extended his win streak to 3 because AO Racing with their Rexy Porsche 911 did a one-off entry in the GTD class at Long Beach, and Lawrence Vanthor was one of the drivers. Lawrence Vanthor won Long Beach as well, so he extends his streak. I guess he's going to have to find a ride for Laguna Seca, potentially make it 4 wins in a row in IMSA. Although if he chooses a prototype, it might be pretty hard to beat the number 7 Penske Porsche at this point, and his teammates Nick Tandy and Felipe Nasr. BMW was fast all weekend, much like they were at Long Beach or at Sebring, and much like they were at Daytona. But BMW once again comes up empty-handed. It was a bit of a pit strategy race, and they chose wrong. Wayne Taylor Racing with their Cadillacs scratching their heads a little bit. They have not been on the pace throughout this year's IMSA Sports Car Championship. The best shot they really had was at Daytona with the number 40 car. Of course, that was crashed in one of those dramatic crashes over the night. There's going to be a lot of thinking that needs to be done there. Obviously, the return to Cadillac has not gone the way anyone, I think, expected. And Aston Martin, which I think we need to shout out Aston Martin for beating the 2 Acuras to the finish line in Acura's home race. The Aston, in its 2nd race, on the state side anyway, finishes 8th overall, 8th in GTP, as they continue to develop the LMH Aston Martin Valkyrie for IMSA. Their next race, of course, in May in Laguna Seca, will be on hand in person to cover the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship in Detroit. So stay tuned for that. IndyCar. So the big story going into this race was the fact that the race distance was expanded 5 laps. It went from last year's Long Beach was 85 laps. This year's was 90. And that was to try to make an effort to make the race less about conservation and more about outright pace. And I think it did do that. I'm just not really sure that the racing product was all that much more compelling than it was last year. I actually think, and I have to rewatch last year's race, but at least thinking about the feelings that I had watching last year's Long Beach for the Indy cars and this year's Long Beach for the Indy cars, I think I was a little bit more excited to watch last year's race, which is weird because I think there was a little bit more competition, a little bit more passing this year than we saw last year. But it was unfortunately a little bit of a dud, and I hate to say that because Long Beach is one of those races that, one of those tracks that really can produce exciting racing, spectacular moments. I don't really feel like this race was necessarily that, although at least based on the reactions on social media, the reactions on my live chat during the race, I think a lot of people were enjoying this race, so that's good. We see some positivity in the IndyCar fan base. I don't want to try to take that away from you. I'm just kind of giving my opinion. Kyle Kirkwood, man, his 2nd win at Long Beach, and it came on a weekend in which I stuck my damn foot in my mouth on Unverified, and I said, when Kyle suggested that Kyle Kirkwood would win. I have no idea why I said this. I said, no way in hell. Why did I say that? I completely own up to that. I was a fool for saying that. I think what it came down to was I didn't necessarily trust the Andretti pit crews. They have in the past been a liability, but I have to throw it to them and give it to them. That pit crew was absolutely freaking pitch perfect. They were on it. They did everything they needed to do to win Kyle Kirkwood that race. And by the way, Kyle Kirkwood drove absolutely flawlessly. He had to, because he was being chased the entire race by Alex Palou. This was one of the most impressive wins we have seen in IndyCar in a very, very long time. And it's Kyle Kirkwood pulling it off. By the way, also, got to give a shout out to Brian Herta on the pit stand, making all the right calls, as he usually does. Brian Herta, one of the best at strategy. This race, of course, a little bit of a strategy race, not nearly as much as last year. But again, the 2017 for Andretti had to be pitch perfect because it was Alex Palou right behind. Of course, in the terms of the championship, Alex Palou not winning a race, well, it helps a little bit, but Alex Palou's finishing second. Well, the rest of the field is still pretty bummed about that. And had Kyle Kirkwood had any kind of a flaw, any kind of a mistake, Alex Palou would have won this race, no doubt about it. And it took a perfect race to beat him. I think that's another thing that's extremely important. The only thing that I was curious about with Alex Palou, the overcut was such a powerful strategy choice in this race. I was a bit confused as to why Alex Palou and Chip Ganassi Racing did not attempt to overcut Kyle Kirkwood at all. I believe they pitted with him on the first pit sequence, and then every subsequent pit sequence, they pitted a lap later than Kyle Kirkwood. So I don't really understand that one. The undercut was definitely not the way to go. Did it cost them the race? Hard to say. Again, Kyle Kirkwood might have been unbeatable yesterday. There's no doubt about it. Christian Lundgaard, P3. That dude is the real deal. And if you don't believe that at this point, I don't know what to tell you. I think we all kind of, at least I expected it. I ended up getting blocked by Bobby Ray Hall because I said it, but I'm going to say it again. Christian Lundgaard was always going to take a step up heading to Arrow McLaren. And we're seeing the dividends of that right away. He was the first driver across the line on that alternate strategy. He made that work better than anybody else. And the alternate strategy looked like a good way to move up through the field. It just wasn't enough to challenge Kirkwood or Palou. But Christian Lundgaard, he's absolutely going to win a race this year. It's just a matter of time. He, of course, crashed the car, tubbed it in qualifying. Had he not done that, perhaps he would have had a shot at winning the race. So we'll see later on in the season. Will Power, 13th starting position, drove all the way up to 5th. He was on the primary strategy. He didn't do anything different than the leaders, so that was on pure pace. It's kind of unfortunate we didn't get to see quite as much of Will Power's moves on the TV. By the way, another bit of fox glazing. They brought back the visor cam. Will Power was one of several drivers who was running that onboard camera throughout the race. Thank you. Thank you for bringing that back. Fox did two things that I will always praise them for. Cars on the starting grid and visor cam. Two things that should have never left, but we're happy they're back. Sting Ray Robb, baby. 13 laps led and a P9 on merit. They were one of the few teams and driver combinations to try the alternate strategy. Stingray was third on that strategy behind Christian Lundgaard and Scott Dixon, and it was completely merit-based. Stingray showed pace, was able to lead the race, was able to make the strategy work, keep the tires underneath him, did everything he needed to do. That is an absolute 100% earned ninth place finish. Probably will help his confidence, will absolutely help the confidence of that Juncos Hollinger racing team as they continue to try to work their way up the grid. Santino Ferrucci, amazing drive. Terrible qualifying, got into the wall, had to start last. Santino Ferrucci, the biggest mover, 27th position to P11. And I think most compelling about that, he managed to outrace David Malukas, who started 10th, but only was able to manage finishing 17th position. If this was Formula One, we'd be talking about this for weeks and weeks, but it's not. So we'll just throw it out there and see what you guys think. Joseph Newgarden, wow. 2 years in a row that the two team has not had a very good Long Beach. Of course, last year was for completely outside of the track reasons, but seatbelt issues again for a Team Penske car. And those seatbelt issues ultimately led to Joseph Newgarden finishing last in the race. A terrible start to the season for Joseph Newgarden. Hard to say if it's the exact same situation or just another just crazy act of coincidence that Joseph Newgarden and Will Power would have suffered seatbelt failures in the last 5 races of the IndyCar series. Of course, Power's failure happened at Nashville and cost him a shot at the championship. Joseph's a little bit less costly, but certainly an odd situation. The crowd looked awesome for the 50th anniversary of Long Beach, especially during Saturday's IMSA race. I mean, that place looked freaking packed. So we know the Southern California IndyCar fans are actually really awesome. It was awesome when I got to make my one appearance. Hopefully someday I'll get to go back. But my one appearance so far at Long Beach in 2022, that is their Indy 500. There's no doubt about it. It's a great group of fans down there for sure. And you guys supported your race. So we love to see that. Thank you guys for doing that. Open test in 2 weeks at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway on the oval. I call it the first and second day of practice for the Indianapolis 500. And by the way, my understanding is there are going to be qualifying sims with the qualifying boost on the second day of practice. Unprecedented. Exciting. It will be open to the public. The Turn 2 grandstands will be open to the public, so come on out. It should be free. Not sure about streaming yet. If it will or will not be streamed, we're not sure. No one's saying anything. Quite honestly, just come here. Just come to the David Land channel, subscribe. We've got you covered for testing and the coverage of those first 2 days of practice for the 109th Indianapolis 500. I'm heading to New York City for the New York Auto Show. Special thing that I can't talk about. It has nothing to do with IndyCar. Don't get your hopes up, but I think you're going to think it's pretty cool. Thank you guys so much for watching. This has been David Land on YouTube, and we'll see you in the next video.